If you think about it, we've potentially been lied to about many things in our past. Books on history, evolution, technology, religion have all been tainted by the repeated touchings and rewritings of mortal man. Historically and still today, leaders of humanity have rarely shown their ability to resist bending the facts and stories of the past to serve their own ego and bank accounts. And anything that pushes against their establishment narrative is quickly buried and erased forever. Dare to slip down the bottomless rabbit hole of UFOs and the paranormal will land you in the domain of kooks, quacks, and wackos. But not anymore, because there is something here. Something is close. Something is becoming much more persistent. And whatever it is, it's trying to get your attention. Orbs, small manifested balls of light and energy, are very real. Ask anyone who's been lucky enough to experience them firsthand, and you hear from some that it's one of the most significant events they've ever had in their life. Many report a sense of connection to these orbs somehow, like an intrinsic vibe of kindness and caring. Other times, experiencers have felt almost a family member-like connection, and for unknown reasons, some people are initially more prone to see orbs than others. Some can connect through meditation, which is exactly what the UFO world calls CE5 protocols. Some have always seen them. Others begin to see them after a close death in the family or their own near-death experience. And according to first-hand experiencers like Chris Bledsoe, if you're humble, calm, and tuned in enough, you can see them too. But in the greater public discussions, the droning on about drones has allowed the conversation to skip over the most important point: the persistent and steady increase of orbs and UFO sightings around the world the last few years. What these phenomena are and the details about their activities has been completely ignored by the media. Because how do they miss the fact that it's the orbs that are making the appearances over the most sensitive military bases and assets? It's the orbs who have set up over nuclear defense installations and causing them to be shut down. And it's the orbs that are leaving our state-of-the-art in the dust when jets are scrambled to intercept them. I think the nuts and bolts drones being seen are a man-made distraction, because we are in the midst of a very real, very robust flap of dramatically increased UFO activity, and those in power know they are absolutely powerless to stop it. As this activity continues to increase, our military and intelligence leaders don't want to answer your questions about what is happening. So the only thing they can do is send up their in-house mock drones, create diversions that distract you from the significant number of actual anomalous sightings, because if you can confuse the orbs and the drones together in the public's mind and then call them all drones, they can lie to you about what it is you're actually seeing. And if you want a great place to check for UFO reports or to report your own sighting, check out Enigma Labs, a worldwide reporting and tracking platform. Enigma reports go back to the 1940s, but just looking at December of 2022 to September of 2024, Enigma recorded over 6,200 orb sightings, with nearly 4,500 of those confirmed as authentic, meaning they were not animations or AI, and 322 of those confirmed sightings were silver metallic orbs that had no visible seams or means of propulsion. For the skeptics and debunkers who constantly cry about zero evidence, they should go crawl around on the Enigma Labs app or website for a few hours or days or months, because that's what it would take to get through even a fraction of the case reports. And most of the recent reports have videos and pictures attached to them. Are they all UFOs? Of course not. But there are definitely a lot of interesting anomalous reports to sift through and wonder, what the hell was that? No discussion about UFOs or orbs is complete without talking about their extremely persistent interest in nuclear weapons. UFO orb incidents have been reported near nuclear weapon sites for decades. like the widely known Maelstrom Air Force Base incidents in 1967, where 10 Oscar Flight Minutemen intercontinental ballistic missiles were taken completely offline by a large glowing disc-shaped orb hovering over the facility. Then, only a few hours later, about 20 miles away at the Maelstrom Echo Flight location, another 10 Minutemen ICBMs were taken offline by UFO orbs that floated above the warhead storage base. So in total, 20 of the most important nuclear missile assets in the US arsenal were taken completely offline by UFOs and orbs. We're talking no-go status, meaning we could not have sent them up even if we wanted or needed to. And here's something else disturbing that I came across while researching this episode about the Maelstrom shutdowns. The ICBMs were not only shut down one by one, all 10 in a row, systematically, but they remained in no-go status for over 12 hours before maintenance could bring them back online. This is extremely troubling because the US Air Force stands by the statement to this day that no UFOs have ever caused a national security concern. I don't know about you, but a 12+ hour shutdown of ICBM warheads to no-go status sounds very much like a national security concern to me. Therefore, the US Air Force and the broader US military has knowingly lied directly to the American public on many occasions and repeats that offense anytime they repeat the line that UFOs have never caused a national security concern. There should be a prosecutable law against something like that, whether you're under a government NDA or not. And while the 1967 Maelstrom shutdowns may be the most well-known incident, episode coming soon, they are far from the last interactions with UFOs and orbs and nuclear assets. In May 2023, a silver sphere was seen near Joint Base Lewis-McChord in Washington State. Joint Base Lewis-McChord on Interstate 5 near Tacoma, Washington, is home to the 62nd Airlift Wing, the only United States military unit armed with and transporting nuclear weapons by air. On January 10, 2024, a silver ball was spotted following a plane near Lewis-McChord. And on July 23, 2024, a 3-foot-high shiny oval was witnessed just hovering over the base. And here are a few other famous UFO cases that feature nuclear power or nuclear weapons. The infamous Tic Tac encounter that happened not far from the nuclear-powered USS Nimitz carrier in 2004. The numerous near-miss encounters off the US East Coast in 2014 with Lieutenant Ryan Graves and crew was under the purview of the USS Theodore Roosevelt, also a nuclear-powered carrier. In all, the US Navy publicly has over 70 nuclear-powered submarines, 10 nuclear carriers, and at least 1 nuclear-powered research vessel. And incidents are also super common around nuclear energy plants globally. In fact, some of the most interesting orb videos that I've ever seen are right after the Fukushima reactor melted down in 2011. The UFO-orb nuclear connection is a long-standing and well-known correlation. So much so that in his book Imminent, Lou Elizondo outlined how there was a plan to try and set a nuclear trap and bait a UFO encounter with nuclear-powered military assets. Supposedly this plan was thwarted by gatekeeper factions in the Pentagon. Shocker. However, other reports claim that this tactic has been used and it very much works. But yet, it doesn't always have to be nuclear powered to get an orb's attention. The intense and obvious interest in our military and nuclear arsenals by UFOs and orbs gives us a clue to the overall intent of these phenomena. The military warhawks would say, "That's exactly what you do when you're gathering intel on the enemies." But as I've said in episodes past, if their intention was to invade and wipe us out, why wait until we're vastly more advanced in the last 80 or so years with nuclear and modern weapons before they decide to attack? That seems like a terrible war tactic and just doesn't make any logical or strategic sense. Or you can simply notice the very obvious and direct correlation of the modern arrival of UFO activity overlapping with the creation and detonation of nuclear weapons. Because maybe living on the brink of nuclear annihilation 24/7, 365 on your only home planet is a bad idea if you don't want to go extinct. Maybe if we're lucky, they might have some words of wisdom for us. We can only hope. can't talk about orbs without talking about Chris Bledsoe. Chris has been dubbed by many as the most studied UFO experiencer in the world. If NASA, the DoD, and Pentagon spooks are so deeply interested in Chris and his family, as they have been for the last 17 to 18 years, then it's probably a good idea for the rest of us to be familiar with their story. Chris's story starts when he was a young boy around the age of 10. He was at a family holiday gathering in Fayetteville area of North Carolina when Chris, his cousin Kenny, and the neighbor Vance, both 9 years old, decided they would go dove hunting in the woods near their home one afternoon. Long story short, the boys went unsupervised and Chris ended up getting shot in the back at close range by his cousin. At that moment, Chris had a full-on, out-of-body, near-death experience, and it's absolutely incredible he even survived. Fast forward to January 8, 2007, Chris, his eldest son Chris Jr., and a few other guys they work with had recently wrapped up a construction job that weekend and wanted to go fishing. They piled into Chris's red pickup and made their way down towards the Cape Fear River that runs through the Fayetteville, North Carolina area. It was this fateful evening down by the Cape Fear River where Chris, his eldest son, and the three men all had a very close encounter with what was initially 9 white orbs. Chris had the most profound experience with about 2 hours of missing time that he would later recall as a full abduction experience by beings that he initially saw as 3 huge red orbs. The story of Chris Bledsoe and his family is absolutely astonishing, even more so when you learn how they have been studied extensively by elite elements of our government and intelligence apparatus. And the main reason they're interested in Chris? His distinct connection to the phenomenon and especially the orbs. Since a near-death experience as a boy and his abduction encounter all those years ago, and many, many more experiences that have happened since then to Chris and his family, Chris has developed a very special relationship with the orbs. The Bledsoes often do skywatch parties at events or with media, and every single time they go out in a group or with others or just at home with family, the orbs always make an appearance. And lately, they've been coming in very high numbers. If you want the full details on Chris's story, I highly recommend reading his book, UFO of God. If you want to see these orbs yourself, you can go to Chris or his son Ryan's social media accounts where they have hundreds of videos, and I'll link that down below as well. When asked what he thinks the orbs are, Chris believes they are beings of pure light and spirit that can manifest themselves into our reality, basically however they want, as humanoids, as traditional UFO craft, as orbs of light, whatever. He says the orbs are the beings. They are the phenomenon, or at least parts of it. But there is so much that is completely unknown, and until we gain a more complete understanding of the truth all the way through, absolutely nothing can be off the table simply because we don't understand it. Just like an ant or your cat will never be able to fly a 747 jumbo jet or drive a car. It's beyond their capability to comprehend the technology or even what is happening mechanically. We are the ant or the cat relative to the phenomenon, and it's our egos that struggle with the concept of something vastly superior to human knowledge, because we've always held ourselves up as the pinnacle of intelligence in the universe, and therefore we believe everything must be explainable through our current paradigms and understandings. The funny thing is it's been like that at every point in human history. We were once certain the Earth was flat, and we were once certain the Earth was at the center of the entire universe. And those hot takes sound laughable now, but you could have been burned at the stake by the church for going against such ideas just a few centuries ago. Our cutting-edge science can't even fully explain quantum activity, the origin or cause of the Big Bang, where consciousness comes from, what gravity is and how it works, or even what light is for that matter. So why would anyone dare to be certain that we are at the peak of any intelligence chain, or that we have it all figured out right now, so that they can cram everything through the lens of relativity and materialism? It's pure human-centric, flawed thinking repeating itself. There's a pervasive insistence by modern science to classify everything as strictly materialistic. This makes sense because scientists need to be able to replicate experiments to test a hypothesis, and anything experiential, like the ineffable woo consciousness stuff, can't be replicated in a lab, and therefore shouldn't touch respectable science. Luckily, science has its mavericks that don't buy into that idea, and a few of them are brave enough to step into the realm of non-materialism to extract new theories and possibilities for explaining our physical reality. In their 2007 book, The Orb Project, co-authors Dr. Klaus Heinemann, a NASA, UCLA, and Stanford University research physicist, and Dr. Michael Ledwith, a professor of systematic theology, have pondered the existence and meaning of orbs for years. Their conclusions are quite astonishing. Dr. Ledwith states that orbs are essentially beings who are lowering their energetic fields so they can interact and be seen with us, and that anyone can see them. And this gets into the idea of connection to the phenomenon through meditation, or what some in the UFO community call CE5 protocols. Okay, quick tangent on the CE5, by the way. My wife is a very experienced yoga teacher, and we used to host yoga retreats every year down in Bali, Indonesia. On those retreats, we would do various types of meditations with our guests every day. And I can tell you that after listening to several CE5 protocol sessions, they are just variations of basic guided meditations. There isn't anything magical being evoked in what's being said. The magic is in you guiding your mind through directed relaxation, which then puts your brain or entrains your brain into different wavelength ranges and planes of focus. I'm planning to do a full episode on all the CE5 stuff that has been borrowed by the UFO crowd. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see a separate guided meditation with that episode for attracting these types of encounters. Okay, back to the book. Dr. Ledwith confirms the idea of focused meditation being an effective way to better engage with the phenomenon. But he says it's not the meditation per se or any particular session that is going on, like with groups. He believes what draws the orbs is the frequency of the brainwave activity. When asked if the change in our brainwave frequencies could affect or limit our ability to interact with them, Dr. Ledwith says absolutely, without a doubt. Interestingly, he also says that a person who is immersed in negative or doom and gloom thinking regularly is never going to see orbs near them because of the negative brainwave patterns associated with those thoughts. So if you want to see orbs, use social media less, or even better, not at all. Which brings up a bigger question here. Is one of the main purposes of all the disinformation surrounding the UFO phenomenon put there intentionally to frame it as something negative? Like the threat and impending invasion plot, or that we're containers they use to suck the life force out of our souls, or whatever UFO fear-mongering idea du jour you prefer. Is this information disseminated intentionally by UFO gatekeepers because they know that a negative mindset correlation to the phenomenon will make it more difficult to connect on our own? I don't know, but it's certainly interesting to think about. The other co-author, Dr. Klaus Heinemann, pulls no punches when giving his hypothesis of the orbs. He believes they are emanations from spirit beings. And again, the nuts and bolts folks love that one. And remember, this guy isn't some kook lost in the woods picking a lot of fungus to trip on. He's a research physicist at NASA, Stanford, and UCLA. His PhD is in experimental physics. He says spirit beings are all around us, but of course, they are totally invisible, and that's why they are disputed by most of the world's population. Dr. Heinemann has a really interesting theory to explain how and why we see the orbs the way we do. He says, I do believe they are all around us and that they are not in the form in which we see these orbs. It's like if you picture yourself holding a flashlight and then shining that flashlight around. The light beam from the flashlight is not you, but you are directing it and you decide where it shines. But if someone was in that dark room with you who didn't understand a flashlight and they couldn't see you, and then they simply take the beam of light as the whole truth and nothing but the truth, they could maybe conclude that the light beam is you. But that person would of course be wrong, because it is the larger being you who decides where the light beam shows up. This is what Dr. Heinemann believes is happening with orb sightings. Also interesting that David Grush made a similar analogy under oath to Congress when asked what the beings could be. He attempted to explain they could be a type of shadow or hologram being broadcast down to our physical plane. And I find it really interesting that extremely high-level scientific minds like Dr. Heinemann and Dr. Ledwith have come up with similar conclusions to those of a direct experiencer like Chris Bledsoe, who says they can appear anywhere in any form they decide. So then the question is, what the hell are we seeing? As the saying goes, technology without understanding is imperceptible from magic. The human mind doesn't rationalize magic well. The truth is we don't understand things that appear to us as magic or paranormal. And until science can identify the specific steps it takes to get from lower physical dimensions like the one we exist in here to other or higher dimensions that theoretical physics is only starting to acknowledge, the concept of higher vibrational or spirit beings as a potential explanation for elements of the phenomenon, whatever that means, must be considered and explored somehow. But until we have that deeper understanding of exactly what the phenomenon is or elements of it are, we cannot exclude any possible explanations, no matter how much our materialistic minds may not like the idea. Maybe the orbs and the UFO phenomena have concern for the health and well-being of the beautiful and diverse life on this planet that humans are decimating on a daily basis. Maybe they're hoping we figure it out before we collapse everything around us and wipe ourselves and even more of the fragile species off the face of the earth. Maybe they see value in biodiversity and ecosystems over our imaginary human-centric monetary systems of capitalism and profit above all else, which is neither real nor relevant to nature. Maybe they see the value in the learning of lessons by our individual energetic beings as the greatest resource we have and not what's buried in the ground. And maybe because they care about the long-term picture of this planet and all life gifted upon it, they will let us fail and wipe ourselves out if we're not smart enough to pull our collective heads out, which really means the leaders of this world. Whatever these phenomena are, they are definitely not imaginary, and they are definitely not nothing. Whatever it is that's trying to get our attention, it's something well beyond our basic understanding, and we need to stop anthropomorphizing and demonizing all elements of the phenomenon. As a species, we are extremely violent, and it's not a surprise that our leaders' first and favorite reaction is to frame anything we don't understand as a threat. And maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it is a threat, but for reasons I stated earlier, I highly doubt that theory as a logical explanation. The real story here isn't the mechanical drones distracting everyone. It isn't an impending alien invasion. It's the orbs. The orbs are the high level of the phenomenon trying to show us that they, or it, is real. As Dr. Heinemann implies, the orbs are the non-human intelligence trying to get our attention with their flashlights. Dr. Ledwith believes the orbs are always here, and they probably always have been. We just can't see them, sometimes. There's an idea in the undercurrents around this topic that believes we don't need our leaders to give us disclosure. All we need to do is be in the right mindset and go outside and connect. Chris Bledsoe says we can ask for them to show up, and they might respond to our words, but more so, they will respond to our thoughts and our intentions, because they are connected to all of us consciously. The conscious connection is the reason for the high strangeness observable when close encounters happen. They can literally mess with our consciousness in real time. But if you let go of the fear, of your preconceived notions of what you think the answer to what the phenomenon is, let go of any negativity, stay humble, stay positive, and stay tuned in, they may just come say hello the next time you call for them. If if you want to see why the mechanical man-made drones, not orbs, are a much worse problem than has been reported and is still ongoing, by the way, then watch the episode linked in the description below and at the end of this video. And until that next time, thank you for watching. My name is Jason. I will see you again soon. Take care, my friend.